right, y'all, it's April 1st, and this lesson is kind of lesson number 2 of our unit on triadic reciprocal causation theory. And long story short, I'm not adding new information to this triadic reciprocal causation theory. We're not building onto it. We're just taking a deeper dive. And specifically, I want to take a deeper dive into the personal factors category that we discussed a little bit last week. But let me just do a really, really quick review and tell you where we're going. Triadic reciprocal causation theory is a framework for understanding the causes of behaviors. It realizes that we don't always act logically. Sometimes people act very illogically. We learn all about health and calorie counting, and then we eat 6 donuts anyway. And it's like, what led to that? What are the reasons for that? And triadic reciprocal causation is trying to kind of create a sort of framework for going, we have our personal characteristics, we have our environment, and we have a behavior. So let's see how those play out. And none of them are more important than the other. They all inform each other. Environmental factors relate to personal factors, relate to behavior factors, which relate to environmental factors. And this is just this wheel of understanding people. And y'all did just such a great job with the assignment where I gave you that case study of Jared. I think I named the boy. And y'all just did a really great job of using the heuristic to kind of look at Jared's root behaviors and to develop an action plan to help him. And I hope that's a tool that you can use. I really think it's important. Sometimes we overemphasize environmental factors or behavior, and really we need to take a deeper dive into personal factors and personal characteristics, which is what I want to do today. I want to specifically take a deeper dive on these personal factors: cognitive ability, self-efficacy, beliefs, and attitudes. So you might want to take notes on this. I'm just going to suggest really brief notes. I don't think your notes have to be lengthy. I'm going to really give you just a few key terms that are new in this slideshow, and then I'm going to give you kind of a major outcome. I'm going to give you, like I said, so 3 key terms and 1 major outcome is kind of the framework if you're doing notes. And then at the end of this, there's kind of a fun assignment. I'm really excited for this week's assignment. I think you'll enjoy it too. So let's get into it. Personal characteristics, this is just review. You have a person's cognitive ability, and we'll get into each of these. We have self-efficacy, we have attitude, and these have really big impacts on learning and a person's agency. So I want to go deeper. I want to tease this out a little bit. So rather than just going, how smart is someone? There's more to cognitive ability than just how smart you are. Self-efficacy is belief in yourself. There's more to self-efficacy than just belief. And attitude, I'm just going to shoot you straight. I'm not a big fan of the word attitude. I think the word attitude is very... Sometimes we look at attitude as like this, doesn't matter what's happening in your life, you can have a good attitude. And sometimes I think that's unfair. I think attitude is often a result of hardship or good, right? And balance. And to penalize kids for having a bad attitude because bad things happen to them is almost like a double whammy. It's like you had a hard life and you're not handling it well. How could you? And sometimes attitude is just this battering ram against students and people where they actually have needs that need to be met. They actually have shortcomings in their lives that need to be helped. And then they get to a school environment or a medical environment, and it's like, well, you need a better attitude. And you're just like, man, it's kind of a heart-wrenching way to deal with students who are truly going through something hard. So I'm going to revisit this term with you guys today as well. Let's continue. Talk about cognitive abilities. The first one on our list. Let's keep going. So cognitive abilities refers to, on a very broad level, it's just how smart someone is or what they're smart at. and you could call it intellectual capability. But I want to break that down a little bit. Oh, I just realized I can't type here. I was going to type right here. I'll have to exit out of the slideshow. Anyway, we can think of cognitive ability just as intellectual capability, an ACT score. That's not all there is to it. So I'm going to back out and I'm going to type a bit. In addition to the basic cognition, which is how smart someone is or what someone's smart at or intellectual capability, there's also this thing called metacognition. And this is how aware someone is of their own learning processes. Okay, so we spent some time 3 weeks ago, on learning processing theory, information processing theory. And we learned information processing is like this sensory processing neuron-based thing where you're taking in a stimuli and you're connecting it. Everybody does it a little different. And you being aware how you do that is called metacognition. Okay? You being aware of how you learn is your metacognition. It includes learning styles and preferences, but it's not just learning styles and preferences. It's not just I'm a visual learner. It's metacognition, as we're going to see in a little bit, also the ability to translate learning into your style, right? Are you able, if you're a visual learner and someone's talking, are you somehow able to use a mental strategy to convert that auditory into visual? Can you picture it? Can you write it down? Right? There's even right now, I'm presenting this visually. I'm presenting this visually through the slideshow. I'm presenting it auditorily through my mouth, through the sound that you were hearing, right? If you're a hands-on learner and you're not taking notes, you are robbing yourself of a hands-on method of learning. Furthermore, if you're someone who needs to talk about this stuff to really cement it, someone who has a high level of metacognition will go, okay, I listened to Nick, I read the slides, I wrote notes, now I'm going to talk about it with him, or send him a message, or talk to my peers, make sure that I am fully getting this. Because that interaction component is really important to my learning style. Maybe you start thinking of examples of this, right? And that is also all part of metacognition. Being able to take the information and adjust it to how you learn, rather than relying on me being the perfect teacher all the time. That's metacognition. So important. So metacognition is the awareness of your learning processes and the ability to translate learning into your preferred learning process. So that's what I'll say about metacognition. Let's continue. Oh, I got to fill this one in too. Earlier we talked about self-efficacy as well as a component of personal characteristics. Self-efficacy is a belief in a person's ability to accomplish a task. And this includes both academic and non-academic tasks. So we could say self-efficacy is, example one is, do you have self-efficacy with a math test? Right? If I gave you a calculus test, could you do it? You'd probably put, calculus? No. Well, that's really not the point of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy typically refers to a level of learning that is just a little bit higher than a person's current cognition, right? So if I asked a kindergartner to do some calculus, and they're like, I don't know what that is, I wouldn't be like, you don't have self-efficacy. What's wrong with you? No. Typically, self-efficacy is one's belief in him or herself to do one level of learning up from what they know they can do, okay? So it's a level of learning that's just a little bit higher. So I hope that makes sense. We're not asking anybody to have this self-efficacy that jumps years and years and years ahead, or PhD level thinking. It's just one level up. Okay, math test is my example here. If you're a fourth grader who's learning addition and subtraction and getting your math facts figured out, your division and multiplication, and we add one digit, so now you're doing long division or long multiplication, do you have the ability to figure out that next step? You're not jumping to algebra. You're not jumping to calculus, okay? But this is also non-academic too. Regular life abilities and tasks, okay? I often want to just ask people, or I guess not ask people, but I wonder if people feel self-efficacy towards future work. So getting a job. Do you believe you have what it takes to do it? Do you believe in yourself as a qualified individual to get work done? That's a big question, right? Sometimes we lack self-efficacy when it comes to that. Or another non-academic task that's, I guess we could just, I shouldn't say regular because it's not always regular, but caring well for people. Sometimes we don't believe we can do that well, and you ought to believe you can, right? Self-efficacy is your ability to believe in yourself for this task of caring for people well, right? There's so much. We could go on and on here, right? Anything that's a task to do requires belief in oneself to do it. And if you don't have that belief in yourself, if you're lacking that self-efficacy, what often happens when a person lacks self-efficacy in regards to a task, they very rarely try and fail. I think this is going to be in the way. Let's move that. They rarely try and fail. Most people who lack self-efficacy simply don't try. Right? So if you lack self-efficacy when it comes to getting a job, it's not that you're going to just do a bunch of interviews and then be sad when you don't get them. If you lack self-efficacy when it comes to getting a job, you won't try to get the job. If you lack self-efficacy to do that next level of math, you're just not going to do it, right? That's typically how we see self-efficacy play out. If a person just gives up, they lack self-efficacy. Even if you try and you're wrong, that's better than not trying at all. That's demonstrating some self-efficacy to try and fail, right? To try something and to fail at it takes a great deal of courage, a great deal of belief in yourself. So that's a deeper dive into self-efficacy, so to speak. Let's continue on. We got one more term we got to look at, attitude. I still don't like this word, attitude. You don't know how good you got it. You need to be thankful. You have a roof over your head. I remember this. Attitude was a frequent conversation in my childhood. I was told something I can always control, right? My attitude was always in my control, even on my worst day. But sometimes it feels like a battering ram. It's like you're down, now let's kick you by telling you about attitude. Attitude, when we just simply define, attitude relates to how a person views a current situation or circumstance. And there's two total views. You can view things positively and learn from them. That's an attitude, right? You might call that like a growth mindset. Or we can have a negative view, right? Negative view of things. Like a victim mindset could be the term we use. I'm not a huge fan of the victim mindset language. But I've heard stagnant mindset, a stagnant attitude. But I want to talk a deeper level about attitude. I don't want the simple definition. In addition to these definitions, I think attitude is deeply related to motivation. Okay? I think attitude is deeply related to motivation. Okay? And here's why. Let's just say that you are told in school, I'm just going to keep using school as an example, but you're told to do an assignment. And the assignment just doesn't seem to have any personal enrichment. It doesn't seem to have any personal value to you. And you decide not to do it. You turn it in, you get in trouble, and you get told you need to have a better attitude about learning. You need to view things positively and learn from them. I don't necessarily just hear that as you need a growth mindset. Sometimes I hear we're conflating attitude and mindset a little bit too much, because sometimes we expect people to have a positive attitude about external motivation. Other people or things telling you to do something a certain way because of external reasons, right? You go to work so you can make this money, and this money is going to motivate you to do this work. It has nothing to do with that belief or that enjoyment or that care. You just do it because externally you've been told, do it or else. I think external motivation often leads to a negative attitude. And if we want to fix that attitude, we need to point people towards intrinsic motivation, which is the opposite. This is a person's own will and willingness to do something a certain way because they feel or see or perceive personal value. I've been in college. I'm not in college anymore, but I did college for close to 9 years. And I could have been a doctor by now. I could have been a medical doctor. I could have been a dentist or an optometrist, and I could be making a lot more money than teaching. But I enjoy teaching. I truly enjoy the work of working with people and with students and getting to talk about these things. And I have a great deal of intrinsic motivation for my job. I truly enjoy it, and because I enjoy it, I don't have an attitude issue with it. I don't hate my job and have a negative mindset, a stagnant mindset, right? My attitude at work is positive because I'm intrinsically motivated each day. I think there's this error within school systems and with our youth where we see a negative attitude and then we tell them they need to stop it, cut it out, be thankful for everything they have, and they need to start acting differently or doing something differently because we said so. There's no value to those kids if we are just trying to externally motivate them to have an attitude adjustment. I want kids to learn because they want to learn. I want kids to learn because they see the value in it. And when I can showcase that to them clearly, and I can showcase it to them practically, before you know it, the attitude is adjusted. It's a positive attitude, okay? So, we've got some terms here. And now we're going to talk about a new term. I just went deeper level. We had cognitive ability, and I said there's this thing called metacognition, and it's how aware you are of how you learn. We had self-efficacy, and it's this ability to conquer the next giant, the next step. Not just anything, but it's the next step. And then we talked about intrinsic motivation. Being motivated by your own desire, not by something external. When a person has metacognition, self-efficacy, and intrinsic motivation, there's a theoretical outcome that I truly believe in called self-regulated learning. When a person understands how they learn, they believe they can learn, and they want to learn, they will be self-regulated in how they learn. And here's what that is. SRL, self-regulated learning, is the idea that a person along their learning journey contains the awareness, the belief, the motivation, and the ability to learn on their own. In other words, you don't need the world's greatest teacher to learn. You, in and of yourself, have all you need to monitor, control, supervise, and govern your learning in your life. Here's how this looks. SRL is either there or it's not. And it needs, like I said, the recipe: metacognition, someone who's metacognitively aware, self-efficacy, self-belief, and intrinsic motivation. You get those three pieces, the recipe works. Here, I'm going to skip to example 2. This is a student with self-regulated learning. Her name's Amy. I made this up, but it's very, very true. These examples are real students that I've taught just with fake names. Amy is a student in a math class. Amy would be the first to admit her teacher does not make learning easy. This teacher's not the greatest teacher in the world. The room is hot. Class is right after lunch. So Amy could drift off at any given moment and fall asleep in this math class. But Amy has SRL. She can do everything she can to stay the course and pay attention. She gives herself good posture. She takes notes. She works out the problems. And why? One day she wants to be a vet. And she knows that being good at math will be important to reach that goal. She realizes, though, this teacher is not always teaching in the way that Amy best learns. So Amy does hard work. She comes up with new ways of processing and thinking about the math. She asks questions that lead to her learning style. She asks, could you do it this way, teacher? Could you show me on the board? Could you show me how you would do this at this point? Could you explain it to me? Right? Because she knows how she learns. She's metacognitively aware. Some other kids, like the student in example 1, Sarah, tell Amy that she's a teacher's pet, but Amy doesn't see it that way. She wants to learn, and she knows she can if she does her best. All 3 components of self-regulated learning are here. Amy believes that the math content will be personally enriching and useful someday, so she has intrinsic motivation. She also realizes that she needs to convert the learning to her own processing style, which shows she's got metacognition. And finally, she believes she can do it even when it's hard, which shows self-efficacy. All these pieces work together to show that Amy has a very unique skill called self-regulated learning. The hallmark of learning, self-regulated learning. Contrast her to Sarah, SRL lacking Sarah. Sarah struggles with math. When she's in math class, she dozes off because the teacher might as well be teaching Chinese. When it comes time to do a lesson, she just tries to imitate the practice problems in the book, but as soon as the problem deviates from the example, she just gives up. Sometimes the teacher tries to help, but Sarah doesn't get why the teacher bothers. Sarah knows that no matter how hard she tries, math just isn't her thing. Teachers just don't know how her brain works, and neither does she, for that matter. When someone asks her how she best learns math, she just laughs. Learn math? That's a fairy tale. We see Sarah's lacking at least 2 pieces of SRL here. She doesn't believe that she'll ever be good at math. That means she lacks self-efficacy. And she doesn't know how she learns math, meaning she lacks metacognition. I don't think that this little blurb talks about her motivation at all. So I didn't include that. But we can likely go, she doesn't have an intrinsic motivation to learn math. So all in all, Sarah lacks the ability to self-regulate her learning. She lacks SRL because she doesn't demonstrate self-efficacy, motivation, or metacognition. Here's a really big question. What would a good teacher do to help this student? Tell you what, it's not going to be send home more homework, not drive math into her head harder. There's going to be something that a teacher has to do to help Sarah believe in herself, to see some success, to see how she learns. She's going to have to get to that point of metacognition and self-efficacy before she'll be self-regulated. This leads us to your assignment, y'all. So I wrote these little stories, right? They're 2 paragraphs. They're kind of cute. They're made up, based on real students, but made up. We have Amy, we have Sarah, and then after each example, I went through how it relates to SRL, the 3 components of SRL. I want you to do that too. I want you to write a 2-paragraph snapshot in a discussion post on Moodle. You'll see it, just like I did with this, where you write 2 paragraphs. You invent a student, you invent a subject, or you can do a patient, and you create a snapshot of someone who has or does not have each of the 3 skills of SRL. You can do a combo. They could have self-efficacy but lack metacognition. They could have intrinsic motivation but need some metacognition or need some self-efficacy. You can mix or match it, and you're going to write a little story. You're going to create a little person epithet of a person who either has or does not have SRL. You're going to put your little story on the discussion board, and then the others will read it and respond by pointing out your character has metacognition because of blank. Your character does not have self-efficacy because of blank, right? And these slides are examples. You're going to write this. You're going to respond with this. Okay? Kind of fun. Be silly. Have fun with it, right? Be a goober. Alrighty. That's the lesson for today. A deeper dive into triadic reciprocal causation. Please let me know if you have any questions, gang, and I hope this video helps. See ya.